And I'd like to welcome Minister Madigan to the House to take this vitally important issue. I've submitted a commencement matter to ask the Minister for Education to provide a timeline for the opening of ASD units or indeed ASD outreach classes in schools in the areas of Dublin 2, 4 and 6, and of course I should also say 6W, because there is in these areas across Dublin South City, indeed Dublin Bay South, there is a serious shortage of places in autism units or indeed autism or ASD outreach classes for children. And this is a matter of intense frustration for the many, many parents and families and indeed children affected. I know that, Minister, you're well aware of this, but we in Labour have been working on this for some years now. I've met with the groups involved. I've met with the representative groups along with my colleague Deputy Aodhán Reardon, and I do want to thank both Autism Equality Dublin Bay South, the As I Am organisation and indeed the parents group Involve Autism D6 and D6W, who have been really advocating on behalf of children in the area so strongly and putting forward such important points. What we're seeing, Minister, currently is nearly 2,000 journeys every day of children out of the area, being bused to schools in different areas at a cost, I'm told, of about €63,000 per year, and also at huge detriment to the children involved and to their families. And this is because of poor planning and lack of local provision, and it has to be tackled. I know, Minister, the progress is being made, and that's why I asked in particular that you would provide a time frame so that we would see exactly how progress is being made and identify exactly where places are going to be available. I'm conscious that there have been schools that have stepped up, but these, I'm told, are predominantly Educate Together schools and DESH schools, and we still see large areas in Dublin Bay South where there is simply no provision, no ASD outreach class or autism unit provided. And many well-established schools in affluent areas which have not stepped up, despite being mandated to do so under the 37A process, they've simply not stepped up and they have not made any provision in their schools for children with autism or autistic children. And what we need to see is a much more strict enforcement of the rule that schools must provide such places. I think we're all conscious of the clear demand that is there, as I've said, and we're all conscious of the fact that children are currently having to be bussed out of the area, and that's really not acceptable. And again, Minister, just to stress the immense frustration that parents and children are experiencing in the area. I've also been asked by the groups involved, Minister, to ask you more about the new forecasting model. I know you've spoken about that, and I've been asked to inquire, could you share details of that, and what in particular are the prevalence rates, and what do the Department of Education and the NCSE propose to do about future planning for the area? Because this isn't just about children who need these places today, although that is the very pressing need. It's also about ensuring that planning for the future is conducted in a well thought out and evidence-based manner so that we don't see children in future also caught in this trap and again having to be bussed out of the area. So I eagerly await your response, Minister. Gurmahagat.
Thank you, Senator. Minister, you have 4 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Senator Bacik, for raising this important matter. And it's important to say that enabling children with special education needs to receive an education appropriate to their needs is a priority for this government, and it's absolutely my priority as the very first Minister for Special Education. And this year, as you know, Senator, over 20% of the total education budget, or €2 billion, will be invested in supporting children with special educational needs. And as a result, the numbers of special education teachers, SNAs and special class and school places are at unprecedented levels. And my department aims to ensure always that there are sufficient school places available to meet the needs of all children throughout the state. And I'm using every lever that is open to me in order to do that. The department policy, as you know, is that students with special education needs should be included where possible and appropriate in mainstream placements with additional supports provided. And in circumstances where children require more specialised interventions, some of which you have outlined, then special class or special school places are provided for. And the National Council for Special Education is responsible for planning and coordinating provision at both a local and a national level, and advising my department in this regard. And it's open, of course, to any school to make an application to the NCSE for the establishment of a specialised provision, and where sanctioned, a range of supports, including capital funding, which is made available to the school. And it's important to say as well, Senator, that every school that opens a special class does get supports in terms of grants. There are Restart grants, there are furniture grants, there are IT grants. So there's always an incentive there for the school to open a special class. Irish mainstream schools have a tradition of providing places which respond to the needs of the families in their areas, and this is evidenced by the growth in special classes over recent years. We know that in 2011, for example, there were 548 special classes. We are now at 1,836. 1,567 of those are for ASD classes. Issues, I think, and you correctly point this out, have arisen over years, particularly recent years, regarding a shortage of suitable school places for students with SEN. And this is primarily driven by the very significant increase in demand, and indeed the shortage of suitable school accommodation in which to open special classes and expand special school provision. And areas of Dublin, such as those referenced by yourself, have featured very much in this regard. And it is this better planning that you speak of at both national and local level that I am and have been endeavouring to tackle. And it's my objective that specialist education places should come on stream to meet emerging demand on a timely basis. Obviously, though, Senator, it always goes without saying, and aside from the Section 37A process that you alluded to, the active collaboration of school communities in this regard is really pivotal. And we know that the NCSE engage on an ongoing basis, and in fact most special classes are set up outside of the Section 37A process. There are a number of schools in the areas that you've outlined that have agreed to open schools. Some of them have genuine reasons where they're not in a position to do so, whether it's capacity issues, whether extenuating circumstances where they simply don't have the space, but the majority of them that were written to are in a position to open those special class places, because we want to ensure, and I want to ensure, that there's no child with special educational needs that won't be in a position to have a place this September. From September of this year, we will be opening 1,200 special class places throughout the country. Thank
you, Minister. Senator, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, Minister, I thank you for your response, and I welcome your comments about your commitment to better planning. And I also very much welcome, of course, the account that from September there will be 1,200 additional places. However, I didn't hear from you any commitment as to the places in Dublin 2, 4, 6 or Dublin 6W. And as I've said, these are the areas where we really see such a pressing need for local places. And I stress that. We're seeing children being bussed out of the area, and that's really not acceptable and a source of immense frustration, and it's really to the detriment of those children and their families. In particular, on the east side of Dublin Bay South, around Ringsend and Sandymount, we see really no provision, and again, well-established schools simply not stepping up and providing the places that should be there for children in their local catchment area. So despite the incentives that have been put in, and which I absolutely acknowledge for schools, I think there is still a serious issue about shortage of places for children in these particular areas. And I would just ask if you can provide a time frame specifically for children in those areas, in Dublin 2, Dublin 4, Dublin 6 and Dublin 6W, as to when we can see more places available for children there. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Minister, you have a further minute to respond.
Thank you, Senator. And just to point out to you, you may already be aware of the fact that I have met with Autism Equality Dublin Bay. I've also met with Involve Autism, and obviously as I am, and I want to commend all the work that they do in this regard. It's very important that I hear from parents and families on the ground, because one of the things I've tried to do at the very outset of taking over this role is try to take that sting out of trying to find a special class or a special school place. I know that City Quay and Star of the Sea will be opening in the areas that you speak of, St Christopher's, Shelleybanks, Ringsend, and others as well. And this planning that you talk about in terms of the forecasting model, this is a new departure for the department, where we're working with the Building and Planning Unit in setting out that 5-year forecasting model. To my mind, there was never a reason why we couldn't do that when you're talking about other schools who use an information geographical system to try and plan into the future. And the other commitment, which I think is extremely important, that I've got from the department, is to ensure that all new schools from this year will automatically provide SEN facilities into the future, which will go to help a significant cohort in the years to come.